Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Aligned Living System podcast. This is David Waldas here with my beautiful girlfriend, Varvara. Mishchenko.
Hi, everyone.
So Varvara is a certified Aligned Living coach, and hopefully you saw the last podcast with her as well. And it's been interesting. We've been working with Nelly Perez, who's absolutely amazing branding guy and the website. And he's been rewriting the copy for us, and it's inspired a lot of really cool conversations. And so the last podcast was actually about the title, the tagline now, and we get into some really cool conversations about the science behind Aligned Living.
Well, I would add that not just him and the clients inspired this conversation, because a lot of people come from different backgrounds, and there's brain. Some people more introduced to energies more. Some people don't know anything about energy. Some people need that logical explanations of things so their brain become relaxed, so then they can go into experiences. So even that science part is helpful for a lot of people. And again, like you explained it in your book, right?
Yeah.
But even sharing some pieces helps some people be in the process, rather than I don't know, I feel something happening, but I don't know what's happening, and I can prove it with my logic mind, so maybe I can trust my body. And then the trust is gone instead of actually building it.
Yeah, when we know the science behind it allows us to let go to it.
Yeah.
More. It's interesting too. Bill Gladstone, who was my publishing agent, fortunately passed away back in December, challenged me when he signed me to write the book, because I was thinking that I'm all, I'm going to write the spiritual book from energetics, and it is about energy. And he said, I don't think that you're not woo-woo enough. I don't think those folks are gonna really resonate with the idea of you, talking about all this. I think you need to write a business book.
Can I interrupt? Yeah, we're not here about woo stuff. It's not we're about connecting everything all together, all pieces, whatever some people call it spiritual and material, but it's not about doing one and another or being whole in general and experience the world fully. That's why it's funny. And he saw it from the side.
He had a vision for me too, that I was, at that point I was much more in a spiritual perspective, even though my whole background is very grounded. And so, my bachelor's is in business, my master's is in education. I was a teacher for years and a soccer coach and entrepreneur. And so everything I was doing was very concrete, but I also had this energetic world. And so I actually thought my audience was going to be the energetic world, which is really, it's a combination. And, I think it's so fun that he saw that vision in me, which was why he was such a successful publishing agent and publisher, and challenged me. And then it was really fun. So the next thing I had to do was research and go, okay, well, what is the science behind this? Because, if you ask scientists, I made it all up. It was all channels and downloads. And so I started doing research and found amazing science that backed everything that Aligned Living is and everything I've been doing.
Right, and there's interesting piece, while you're talking, I'm thinking we all need an observer, as a coach is even and it's a little separate part, but I think it's helpful for people. When we're inside of experience or inside of our logical knowing, sometimes we separate ourselves in a few different, I can decide by intuition or logic, but there is not one or the other, there is whole thing. And I was, again, telling my client, use your logic. It's not like you have to remove it, but use when it's time for it.
Don't override your intuition.
Right. You can...
Don't let your intuition be so out there that what you're doing doesn't ground in reality either.
The intuition helps you see clear things and kind of feel what's right, but with logic, then you can organize the steps. But if you do in opposite order, decide on logic or how it is worked for someone in different situation, in different lifetime, and then try to put in your life, and then at the end throw intuition, it's not needed there.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole point. And again, even you as a coach experience that yourself, like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Like once you're inside of certain knowledge, like you forget about other parts, and again, they embodied in your body, but like once you're interested in that idea, you think you need to put that out there. But the idea covers all grounds, and to even put it to all the people, like it helps to have all the different. It doesn't mean you have to explain to every single person in all the other ways, but once you know it, and again, that's again for clients to understand, once you had an experience and kind of covered whether you need a logical explanation or science behind it, once it all together, like you can forget that science. You don't need it anymore, but you have that feeling of trust and knowing.
This is something solid that's
Yeah, yeah.
and repeatable.
Right.
And dependable.
Right. And even I think we talked with you before about Joe Dispenza, which is known person doing somewhat the practices, different ones, but he explained it was a science as well, because it's helpful for the brain to relax and get the information and even start feeling where it passed that thinking mind. Because again, people could get to that point in meditation and think that's the only way they can feel something, but really we can feel in real life and trust ourselves. It's just the muscle that we have to build, and sometimes we need to explain it with logic when necessary, or as long as it need, right? Each person is different.
And that's what's perfect about aligned living. It's it's funny. It was really fun to go back and look at my book again. It's been a few years since I wrote it, and actually start to
few or many.
Well, it's 2019, right? So 6 years. Dang, time goes so fast. But so much of the foundation of aligned living is in there, and so it's so fun to have it all, like all the research compiled of what is it that we're doing. And the idea that we have these electromagnetic fields, and electromagnetic fields carry information. And there's a HeartMath Institute, if you're familiar with them at all.
Based in the States.
Yeah, they're out of California.
And we actually were at the Zenergy Festival where they were presented, but that's a whole point.
Exactly. So they're all peer-reviewed, real science. It's in all these, science magazines and peer-reviewed experiments that are real and dependable and repeatable.
And I think they even like more enthusiastic and go beyond what's kind of possible in the science to get the experience that not everybody is ready to perform. Like I don't remember all the details, but just to share here, they go beyond what's like kind of, okay, you could do this, but for this one you won't get approved. Like I think they take a lot of risk with the stuff they doing just to get the point. And like as a people, they probably experience it. That's why they want those experience.
And in their experiments, they've proven that our electromagnetic fields, which is a toroidal field, just like you see around a magnet, anything that's electric or magnetic has a field that's like a donut of energy that rotates around it.
Oh, the Earth?
The Earth has it, a magnet has it, anything that's alive has it. And what they've found is that there's tons of information that's carried in that. It's almost like a Morse code. It's like the space between the frequency of it actually carries massive amounts of information. And so, when you're sitting with somebody and your energy fields are overlapping, even just thinking about them, you have that experience of their energy fields.
I guess we could.
It's real information.
For people who are watching us, we can show how it runs, right? Remind it's constantly moving, no matter you know about it or not. But it's when you put your awareness on that, like you gain kind of a control, not control in a way like you're not really controlling, but you know what's happening.
You can expand it, you can you can accelerate it.
Or what kind of energy you're like, oh, okay, so the energy I have right now, that's what in my electromagnetic, like, and you become aware, like what you're putting out there. It's not like just your emotion. You're interacting with people and affecting you. Yeah.
And so they've done these amazing experiments where they've actually proven that the information gets passed. And there's so many experiments that I read going through this. And so I wanted to share a few of them that I think is just so interesting, because the electromagnetic field of the Earth is also affecting us. And so the frequency of that is what's called Schumann resonance. And what that means is basically, how is the energy of the earth running? What is the frequency of it? And then each of us as humans have our own version of Schumann resonance. And we often talk about that as heart-brain coherence. And so is our heart and our brain in sync? And when that's in sync, the electromagnetic field flowing through us is in sync. And the communication between our heart and our brain is actually in sync. And, one of the things that's so interesting about this, so we look at the electromagnetic field of our brain creates one and our heart creates one. Our whole body does. But those are the main ones that create that. And the heart's is actually 60 times stronger than what the brain creates.
And that's the ones that I research right now. We even discussed about our stomach.
And
possibly.
This is a neural network that we're trying to talk about now.
Won't go there yet, but like even the idea, okay, our whole body has electromagnetic field, like our center is where it goes, it comes out, you can imagine, comes out of your head, goes around.
Or it runs the opposite way, depending on how you run it.
Yeah, and comes back through the legs and like just rotates. And our heart, even our heart electromagnetic field is stronger than our whole body, right? And then like we're comparing brain and heart.
Well, so I mean, it's the main thing that's creating our electromagnetic field. And so, when we think about that, if our heart and brain are in coherence, our electromagnetic field becomes in coherence. It's much smoother, and we're actually, our whole body runs cleaner. Like we think clearer. And our electromagnetic field actually expands. And we're given a really rough overview of that, but when we're doing aligned living, it's cool. It's fine. I've got these right here. These,
yeah.
from the HeartMath Institute. These are actually basically biofeedback devices, and they read your heart-brain coherence. And so what was really cool is I started having clients put them on and go into alignment and just watch their heart and brain go into coherence. And so I haven't played with those probably since for a few years more when my book was coming out, and I was looking for the science that backed it. But it's so fun to hook clients up to those and just watch their heart-brain coherence as we went into alignment just come into sync, and it's automatically what happens.
And I guess just for people again who didn't feel alignment or doesn't know what the coherence is, it may be just a feeling of balance, or
we meant much more in flow.
Yeah, just like relaxed, not sleepy, not like when you need to do a lot of things, what do you call it?
So you're not like overcharged, you're not jittery, you're not
not jittery, right? Something in between. And it's just like that, like when you don't think about past, when you're not worried about future, when you experience the moment. And a lot of people actually feel that, not realizing when they don't have all the thoughts running around stuff, when they, like, let's say someone playing with a kid, really being in the process, right? People don't have all the thoughts. That's kind of what it is, right?
Or some quiet.
Yeah.
People that couldn't meditate before all of a sudden can meditate.
Right.
I was so ADHD when I learned this. I was like, oh, this is what I can meditate now. Like as soon as I got that download, I was like, oh, it's so easy. I don't have to be running. Before I meditate on my bike, or I try to meditate running, because I'm like, everything needs to be, in action. And now I can just drop in and go, oh, great, I'm in coherence. And so another experiment that HeartMath
from Spain. Oh, the other heart. Okay, then I like the one from Spain.
Do you want to do Spain first, or you want to do
go ahead.
9/11? All right.
Go ahead.
All right. So basically, there's I think it's Global Coherence Network, I think is what they set up. But basically, HeartMath set up these sensors around the world that measures the electromagnetic activity and basically the energy of the earth and how it's responding to people and how people are responding to the earth. And so there's this incredible feedback loop that happens. So we talk about the Schumann resonance of the planet, which is basically the electromagnetic field of the earth and the frequency it's running. And there can be things like solar flares disrupt that and create a spike in it, and it goes up and down. And so it affects all of us because it's this massive electromagnetic field and hits us. But there's something really fascinating that happens as well. Our electromagnetic field of humans affects the electromagnetic field of the earth. And so that feedback loop, it doesn't just happen from the earth affecting us, we affect it. And so there's this amazing time when it showed up on all the sensors was in 9/11, when the attack on World Trade Center happened, the planes came in, and what they found is there's this massive jump in the coherence of the Earth. And that's fascinating, right? And so when people responded to what happened, it drove the electromagnetic field of the Earth into a greater coherence. People moved into their hearts, their energy field expanded, they became very activated. But I think what's even more fascinating about that is when it happened. And so when they saw the spikes happening, if you're thinking about, like, there was the first plane that crashed in, the second plane, then the plane that went down in Pennsylvania, in Pentagon, I guess, and the other one that went into the field. When they actually felt the spike happened 40 minutes before the first plane hit. It was before anybody knew what was going on. And so when you think about, like, animals moving to higher ground when there's a tsunami coming, like, we're like that. We just aren't used to listening to ourselves. So humanity's electromagnetic field across the globe had a spike in coherence and activation 40 minutes prior to the first plane hitting, before we had any idea what was happening.
Yeah, and I guess, again, it's like a example, like a big, and there's drama involved, but it doesn't need to be. Like, there is situation, again, it happens, like we talked about nature disaster, right? And our coherence could kind of lower them or smooth them, like get back, like instead of Earth, something happening on the Earth affecting all the people, actually our electromagnetic field can get it back to balance sooner. And also in that transfer to normal life and real life, of course, it's not going to be that dramatic and noticeable. It's not about measuring. It's about knowing that, okay, we get affected by Earth because it has a strong, like, it's a line. It doesn't go off balance. It doesn't take.
Well with a solar flare, or if we affect it.
I mean that, but
right,
like
it's
us,
stronger.
it doesn't think about future. It doesn't worry about the past. It doesn't resolve any trauma.
Shit with all of us living on it.
Hold down here, right? Okay. So it doesn't do that. So it's like animals. Like, if it's a fox, it doesn't want to be a wolf, a bear. So it doesn't have those things. So it's naturally aligned. And it does affect us, whether there's solar flare or by itself, but also our more connected we are, not we just existing or living our life better, but we can actually affect that and create even more balance now. And it's not about control of the Earth. It's not about control at all. It's let's call it like a bonus part. It's something that happens. But again, our main idea is not to fix the Earth because it's wrong. It's to start with us, inside of us, and understanding the effect and the responsibility is not like a burden, but actually like, wow, that's how much I'm affecting. If I'm not like, and again, if it's not helpful, don't think about it yet. Like, some people like I have to like sit at home and because people take responsibility differently. That's separate part. Like, by realizing, even me, like when doing it, practices with certain stuff, we're not going to talk about all the tools, but even thinking about electromagnetic field, like I'm driving car, like, you're affecting people around and you don't need to know how, but like, if you're not in a bad mood, you send in that stuff. If you're in a good mood, you send in that stuff. And it doesn't mean that, people have to take it all together, but like, basically, whether you're throwing garbage around yourself or flowers, that's it. Like, that's all you need to know. And like, I'm not just affecting myself right now. I'm affecting more than me. And it's kind of,
there's a personal responsibility in that.
There's a responsibility that comes actually with fun. Like, one day I realized by affecting, but I'm like, that's kind of cool. I'm in a good mood. I'm driving, and again, it's not about tracking how I affected, but just knowing that, like, that affects others one way or another, and I will never find out. That is super cool.
Yeah, just walking through the world, letting your electromagnetic field lift other people up into a better place.
And I guess, I forgot if I gave that example on the podcast about buildings in New York, how they affect me, or like that.
Go ahead, whether you did or not.
Right. So for me, it was a cool example. Like, I love architecture. That's my first degree before psychology. And I love colors, shapes, buildings, and I was living in New York City for quite a while. And I joined buildings. There is one building I see from my rooftop. I actually see most of Manhattan, amazing view. And the building had lights at night, and depending on the holidays, it would change color. Anyway, I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought for a second at one point, like some architect made this building. Obviously, they had idea in mind. They thought it would be beautiful, but they didn't know exactly which person in the world would see it. They can't track every people who enjoyed the building. And also someone created those lights, which I'm enjoying, and person who created those lights and organized them and installed them would never know all the people that enjoyed them and how they affected their lives. And it could be all different, like I interacted that way, and I really like it, just lifts me up. Like I love that building. And that's how our electromagnetic field works. We're never gonna find out fully who and how affected, but we would know how we're affecting people just knowing where we are with ourselves right now and what we're feeling. And that's like the thing we can't control. That's the only thing we can't control. And in a good way, first of all for ourselves, but then like, oh, do I want which effect I want to have around even your family, even your work, even the person you said hello to. It's just that simple.
Yeah, and it's so cool that we have the science that actually backs that, because we all know the feeling. Like you're around somebody who's in a good mood, you feel in a better mood. You're around somebody that's really grouchy or angry, like you feel yourself. There's a pull, there's a contagiousness to it, and science backs it. It's not just the idea of like we're around them and they're angry, and so it just draws us in our mental state. Like there's actually something happening that's being passed between people. And when we look at our life that way and how we're living and what we're engaging, what we're contributing to the world, whether we're contributing positivity or whether we're contributing negativity, it's a real thing. And we affect people all the time. And that's a big part of what aligned living is learning to stabilize yourself. Because the more you can stabilize your energy, the less all that affects you and the more you affect it. We talk about reversing the feedback loop. Instead of absorbing everything around us, we're actually generating energy and bring it to the world around us, and being very clear, very intentional about what it is that we're bringing.
Or I can turn it around. In other words, instead of reacting, we're creating.
Yeah.
And everybody, I think nobody dreamed about react to circumstances. I would think so. I don't think anybody dream. Like people dream to be this or create this or make this unusual, like never done before thing. But instead, again, we'll learn to do opposite, to grow up and learn our like senses or survive. But then nobody told us we can revisit those areas and change things according to where we are at this point. And now we adults, most of adults' nervous system is formed. So again, as kids, we couldn't process a lot of things, so we were dependable on adults and had to shut down some things and had to, like, the adults who were around us was a mirror for us to learn. But right now we don't need all the mirrors. Like we know where we are, and not that we
claim it.
Not that we know, we actually digging back, like removing all the layers and
what's underneath all the stuff we were taught.
Keep learning and remembering who we are and things we know about ourselves that we're sure about. Sometimes not these things that are us. And I wanted like you to talk about that one in Barcelona.
So let me share one other one first. Okay. I haven't shared this one with you. Okay. So this is actually another one from my book, though. And this is so fascinating. We know that animals are much more tapped in to their electromagnetic fields and what's happening with them, but it doesn't mean they have more access to it. They're just more aware of it.
They just don't have those thoughts. Basically, you could describe it as they have intuitions and they don't have thinking. So they don't have that conflict. Yeah. We do. And it's our bonus and minus, like plus and minus at the same time.
Absolutely. And this example is actually how it worked against the European robin. And so this is fascinating. So the European robin has this normal migration pattern, and it was flying along. So scientists were tracking it. And all of a sudden, all these birds that were migrating just took a left-hand turn and just converged on this city. And so all of a sudden there's like thousands and thousands of European robins all over the city. And so everybody was like, what is going on? Why are all these birds here? And so scientists came in to study, and this is actually a peer-reviewed study they did. They published it in Nature magazine, and what they found was that they discovered this low frequency AM signal that's was being broadcast, and it disrupted the European robins' sense of the Earth's electromagnetic field. They picked up the AM signal instead of the Earth signal, and they got confused and just turned off course and went to where the signal was being broadcast, which must have been crazy for the people in the city. All of a sudden, there's just birds everywhere, right? And so here's what scientists did: is they came up with the idea to create little birdhouses out of metal. And what that is actually a Faraday cage. And a Faraday cage basically blocks electromagnetic signals. And so like your microwave is one. And so they say if there's like a solar flare, like if you put your phone in the microwave, it would actually protect it. And so anytime there's a metal cage around you, you may see pictures of like Tesla experimenting with that, where basically it blocks the electricity from moving through it. And so they created all these little birdhouses and put them around the city that were made out of metal. The little robins would go in, and while they were in there, it would reset their electromagnetic fields. They would stop being entrained with the AM signal because there was no signal in there. When they come back out again, they were actually, I think they must have turned off the AM signal. So when they came back out again, they were able to re-entrain with the Earth's electromagnetic field. And one by one, they kept leaving the city and reconvened on their normal migration route.
So they basically created kind of a portal or it was consciousness log for the birds.
Yeah, it was a consciousness log.
Whoever's familiar, like reset point, like
that's exactly what it was.
Air log. If someone know, like the astronaut comes in the air log to get in the ship.
Yeah.
So it was similar idea for birds. They were affected with a signal. Let's say they got into a cosmic environment instead of being in their shape, right, where they can breathe and eat
trained with a bunch of
normally. So they had to go through that kind of reset.
Yeah, so it's like a Faraday cage we came around.
Yeah. That's.
Isn't that such a cool thing? And then the birds just went back to their normal migration. And then so, we kind of basically, if you're familiar with the consciousness lock, that's a great. I didn't even think about it. I don't know how I didn't think about that all these years, but it is. They put them in a consciousness lock, which is what we do. We reset it. We block all the signals and then turn it back on and align with our truth, align with who we really are.
And again, we block it temporarily, right?
Yeah.
We still exist in the world. It's not like we're going to the cage to hide from everybody.
It's a temporary thing.
Yeah, we're like, it's a few seconds to reset ourselves, to learn how to listen to ourselves better. And from there, we interact with the world way better. Like way better. It's not like we have to run away from the world. Now we actually can deal with it easier, and some stuff is like just drops like in the frequency, like we in different level in frequency. Once we align with ourselves, we're not in the lower level of drama, and all of a sudden some of the stuff is not really relevant to us. We don't even need to resolve it anymore. Again, it's not like everything won't need to be resolved, but stuff that drain our energy, our thinking,
it's in a different perspective.
Worries.
It's not personal anymore. It just doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and again, it's not about it's that personal, but it just become irrelevant. It just doesn't. The frequency is not there.
Yeah, it's not. We're not a match for it. We're not in coherence with it. We're in coherence with ourselves. And so, I can't believe all these years I never thought about the idea that those little birdhouses were the consciousness lock. That's so perfect.
The book needs additions.
I know. It's volume 2. Yeah, like I need to do an update. Now I have to. It's such a great connection. Thanks.
Enjoy.
Yeah. So the other experiment, the one that you keep wanting us to talk about, this is where let's get pragmatic, right? So what does this mean if we have control of our energy field? If we're able to stabilize inside of ourselves and let the energy that we're creating with affect everything rather than us walking around affecting everything else. All right, what else?
And before you start, again, even though we talk about energy, because the system is about it, it's all connected to a material light. Mm-hmm. But why we don't talk about exact results? Because for everybody in every circumstances is going to be different. We're not telling you do this, do that, and you'll get this specific outcome. you'll get the outcome for sure. What it's going to be for you depends on your alignment.
And who you are, what
yeah,
you're going to do.
and what you're here to do, what's right for you, what's right for you to eat, what's the right time for you to sleep, how to interact with your
You just
kids.
get tuned in with yourself, and then,
Yeah.
and then you become more you and bring that to the world.
And I'm just, again, like, to kind of underline that point of material life, it all goes to material. It's not about just energy. We connect it all, right? So it's how the body feels and how you make decisions, how you could use, again, the logic part. Like, now, once the decision is clear, go ahead, apply the logic, apply the tools, use it. You don't have to create a bicycle all the time. It's all created. The tools, like, created. Just use them right, use them correctly, and know which one is, first to fix. It's like we could fix a headache, but not realize it's really like our intuition and our thinking is off, and we totally like in anxiety or something, right?
Yeah.
Or we can like, oh, that's a signal that, let's say, my brain and heart coherence is off, and I have to align first. That's why I mentioned that point. So once we talk about the electromagnetic field, just remember that it's not just about energy. It all connects back to real life and physical objects.
And it works in both directions. Like, when somebody has a headache, I can take their headache away like 90% of the time, because it's out of coherence and there's a block.
Are you a magician or something?
It's all like it's the response to the energy being clogged. And it's so funny. Like, I remember a client walking in, she's like, I wasn't gonna come to class today because I got such a headache. I'm like,
it's easy.
I'm like, here. She's like, it's gone. I'm like, it's gone.
I mean, and again, I had the clients coughing, and she was thick and congested, and obviously won't go all the details why it happened. A lot of was happening in her life that she couldn't handle and didn't realize. Yeah, congestions of stuff that, again, lower the frequency, the more stuff that you have to deal with. And once we started to do practices, or even started the class, she noticed, like, oh, I wanted to cough, and it just stopped. Like the whole class, she was fine. And people like do feel, again, it's not like you do the class and you fixed forever. That's why there's a whole system to learn and apply it and build the muscle. Like, revise your life and adjust. Like, it could look big, but it's not that big.
Yeah,
It just
and it's not like revamping your whole life. It's the things that aren't working for you, and a lot of it's micro adjustments. A lot of it's like, we feel like something's not working for us, and we realize if we make a subtle adjustment, it brings it into resonance with us, and all of a sudden it does. But when we don't have the ability to fine tune it because we can't feel it, we're often throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Oh, that didn't work, and then we try to solve it with the opposite thing. Where we go, like, oh, let me try something completely different that looks exactly opposite from how that looks.
Yeah,
that'll solve it.
Yeah, or something that worked for someone else that's totally not for you.
Yeah.
Or, again, you could somewhat compare it, changing operating system on your computer constantly. It's not exactly the same, but in some ways the idea of like, we grow, and the way you operated as a kid doesn't work as an adult fully. Obviously there are some things to keep, and even some programs we run on the background are helpful, like brushing your teeth. You don't need to think, oh, wake up, like move my hand this way to hold, like, it's all happen automatically.
Yeah.
So there is great programs that happen automatically, and there are not. But just by not looking at them, we're not realizing like that they are fixable. And also it's become
clear.
And sometimes it looks like impossible when we just don't look at them. Like, I have no idea where to even look. And once we put the light on, and again, light on is being in alignment, all of a sudden, like, you can see what you deal with, and it's not as much as you thought. Like, some fixes are
simple,
that tricky sometimes to pass by our brain, because again, and
we don't see the opportunity because it's not how we're thinking. Right. And then all of a sudden when we come into alignment, we just go, oh, it's this simple.
Yeah.
What was the problem? I'm confused. And we confuse ourselves.
Yeah, and well, I was going to add about another program in our brain. It's not used to things being simple. My fight was that. And like, it's not logical, but it is. It is that simple. Some things, again, there's sometimes 2 millimeter shifts in the distance make such a big difference. Yeah, like you can imagine, imagine airplane flying, right? From Los Angeles to New York, in the big perspective, right? Like if it just flying from Los Angeles, like 1 city hour away, if it changes its direction for 2 millimeters, it could be off, but not as much. If it goes to New York and it changes its trajectory by 2 millimeters, it's a big shift.
Yeah, great. Well, let's talk about the experiment.
Barcelona.
Yeah, so I think you just want to talk about Barcelona. You don't want
No, I like it was a cool one. I guess because I was sharing that one with my client today. Just again, not that she needed science proof, but it helps to digest stuff, and
it does.
and it gives
It gets the data out of the way. It gets the confusion. And then we go, okay, now let's go play.
Mm-hmm.
We're not trying to figure it out.
And it draws bigger picture. Again,
absolutely connects all the tissue. So there's this school in Barcelona, Spain. It's a renowned business school called the ESADE school. And they did this experiment. They were trying to figure out how to recognize emerging leaders. Like, if you have a group of people, who's going to show up as the leader? And so they took these graduate students and they broke them down into groups of like 5 or 6, and they hooked them up to EEGs and EKGs so that they're monitoring all their vital signs. And then they gave them these case studies to work on and solve in these little groups. And then they observed and they watched them, look at the physical, what's happening, and they watched the physiology of what's happening. And what they found was that pretty quick after running the experiment a couple times, they said, oh, we know exactly what it is of who's going to be the leader. And, it wasn't the things you might think about, somebody who's like pushy or somebody who's trying to take charge or, somebody who's charismatic.
Or someone who was smarter than everybody or IQ level was highest.
Right. It was people who were the most stabilized internally. And so their physiology wasn't fluctuating all over the place. And when you look at the leaders that we have, even the horrible ones.
And maybe just say what that means, what criteria they what.
Okay, yeah. And so even when we look at horrible leaders, they look really solid. They look really stable. And so that means their heart rate is settled in, their blood pressure is regulated, their respirations, their breathing is regulated. And it's very even, very solid, very grounded. And so what they found is that one by one, the people in the group started just turning to the leaders, and they naturally became the leader. And that's interesting, right? But here's the part that's like kind of like crazy and fascinating and really lends to the idea of there's something happening with our electromagnetic fields, because there was actually a transference of that information from the leader to the followers, and the followers actually started to sync up their physiology settings, with the leader. And so their respiration, their heart rate, their blood pressure started to stabilize off of the leader. And so they were actually in training with the electromagnetic field of leader and looking to that.
Copying, not realizing
our unconscious
body, because the leader's signal, let's call it, right, was stronger if they were in their body. And our body all naturally want to be in sync, in the balance. So if when they find something, when they feel something around that like is stable, like our body just adjusts.
Yeah. And so if we don't stabilize ourselves, we're always looking for something to stabilize off of. And so, I mean, that is what aligned living is. It's about how do I tap into myself, get in touch with who I am, align myself, and stabilize off myself. And then now the feedback loop originates from us out. And that's what that experiment exactly says. It says when people aren't stabilized, their electromagnetic field is out there. They're looking out in the world and going, oh, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm feeling. And they're looking for stability. And when we're stabilizing and broadcasting that, people look to us to lead. And it's pretty fascinating, right? And so when you want to have influence, when you want to actually be the one that's driving the direction of what's happening, you think about if you're actually affecting people's physiology, imagine how you're affecting their thinking and their ability to follow you.
And I was going to add, you don't need to want to be a leader, not necessarily in that way, like when we know world leaders and stuff, but you want to be a leader in your life, at least. Even that is already like a leader here. We can go far like into really leading roles in society, but the starting point, be leader of your life. Because if not you, then someone else you're gonna be copying or trying, and their leadership could be clean and connected to their real resonance or based on ego in the programs.
Yeah.
And
that's how most of our leaders are in the world.
Right.
Look at them, they're not looking at your best interest.
And those are physical parameters could be in coherence, but how? And again, here we talk about also most natural way to get there instead of doing this ego games and compromising your real nature.
Yeah. And that's exactly, I love that you just said that, because when you're in your ego, you're compromising your real nature. That's a great way to say it. And when you're in your alignment and your flow, you are your real nature, and you're expressing it, and you're leading from that place. And again, this is great for people that want to be leaders, and it's kind of a built-in thing, is that when you're in alignment, you're not in your ego. Like being in there actually puts you into a state of like alignment with your true self and expression of that. And so it has kind of a built-in fail-safe. When I first started teaching this to people, I'm like, gosh, I don't know if I want to just put this out there, because it's amazing what an influence it has on everybody around you. But I'm like, but in order to be able to do this, you have to be in resonance with yourself, not your ego. And so it actually has a fail-safe built in. I'm like, oh. But I took a minute when I was like, man, this is like, I should be intentional about who I teach this to. But the truth is, like you want, if a lot of our leaders knew this, they'd move out of their ego and be in resonance with themselves and coherence with themselves, and the world would look very different, which is a lot of what this is about. But that takes some courage. Not everybody ready to face themselves. Absolutely. Fully. And again, ego, there's a healthy ego too, because we don't need to, because in the world there's contract or remove your ego. Okay, there's healthy part. We're talking here not about healthy part. On the contrastive part, which is compromising the other part of thinking that tells people to do and they don't listen to their heart. Yeah. Like that type of ego we mentioned here, not the, again, reading without it. There is a right time for everything. And when we're in alignment, we don't remove our egos that help us in a good way, like it's needed just in the right time. But it's not a driving force of our life when you like just superior or feel everybody's not that smart as you, or like. Or a lot of people use their ego to feel insecure, right? When they're in a place of feeling inferior, and then they are always in struggle with everything. And it works in both. Like if your ego turns against you, like it cleans that up. If your ego is turning against other people, then it cleans that up. But there is still a real sense, because a big part of this is it cleans up our identity. And when our identity is who we truly are, then we use our ego of that identity to create from, which is very different than better than, worse than. Is about what's right for me, and where do I lead from that resonance. And when we are trained with ourselves, other people aren't necessarily in training with us in the sense of looking to us as, surrendering to us to lead. They actually start to replicate an entrained energy field with self in them, and they get more in touch with themselves, which is very different than somebody who's entrained in their ego. Because when somebody's entrained in their ego, it's drawing everybody else to follow them. Yeah. And when you're trained in your alignment, you're actually helping other people move into alignment. And it's bizarre how it works, but it's absolutely how it works. And all of a sudden, the world around becomes better by itself, and you're not like controlling it. Like you're not going out there and telling people what to do. And then once they align, they inspire you back. Because like now, if in the beginning, let's say you were a leader, whether for yourself or like leading position, right? And people like looking for like kind of getting trained or get those qualities or balance in their body. Now they also equal, they balance. So it's trickier for you to use yours, kind of, or like there is a higher standard now. And if you get out of it, like you feel bigger difference now, and you come back sooner. Yeah, it's like falling off a cliff. What used to be normal, all of a sudden feels unbearable. You're like, I can't operate like that. So basically, everybody benefits. And again, it's not like you have to love all the people that affected by you. You don't have to approve their decision or what's right for them, even if from your thinking mind you had different idea. But if they aligned and they made a decision that's right for them, even if you don't understand, it gives you that feeling of trust to yourself. Absolutely. Again, it's just that
not logical in some ways.
Yeah, stabilizing. Anybody, I used to be a teacher, so anybody that has kids or has been around kids, they're so sensitive, right? They don't have as much, stabilization in the other ways of being. And so when I was a teacher, just feeling like how I was affected the kids so much. And I remember I used to play on this indoor soccer league, and it was a bar league, and so we'd go out for drinks afterwards. And it usually would be a later night. And so it was during the week. And so the day after that, for some reason, the kids were always the worst behaved out of all the time. And I was like,
for some reason,
why is it that every Thursday these kids are just awful? What is it about Thursdays? Like, oh, Wednesday night is soccer night and bar night.
For some
reason
that was named David. Or how do you call teachers?
Mr.
Waldas.
Yeah. And it was funny. Like at that point, I had no idea about any of this. I was like, wasn't aware of that yet. And I was thinking, like, gosh, could these kids just behave on a Thursday? Like, I feel like shit. Like I was out drinking last night. Can they just give me a break? Like who knew? I was the one creating it every time, right? And so, if you're ever around kids, and like your mood instantly affects them. And it's true with adults too. We're just better at masking it. We're better at hiding it. And so, you can run your own experiments in your household. And it's fun for parents to do this and to watch how their kids stabilize and act differently when they're stabilized. I mean, we know it already, but when we have the tools to do it. And so if you're a parent, just do the Aligned Living program just to help with your kids.
but then and the cool part, you don't really need to do stuff with kids. It's like that story, parents teach kids or tell them how to behave instead of being an example.
Yeah.
They'll copy it faster than you think.
Yeah.
Unless you control how they need to copy it. So that doesn't work. Control doesn't. But if you're truly doing it for yourself to start with, and again, you can think about your kids, you worry about them, right? But not to make it main thing to do it for.
Yeah.
Because the main thing starts from you, and then it will affect your kids no matter what.
Affects everything.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's funny, this is the second podcast we record. I don't know how long we've been going, but it's not a half hour. We always get into such great conversations. So, anything else before we wrap up? I feel like we really covered a lot of the...
Yeah, I mean, I think we're good. Like, I think there's enough information to process for everybody and think about. There's some things mentioned, and actually you could research some of them and get
You
more.
could get my book?
Or some of them covered in the book, but I meant you didn't put the whole study.
No.
People could read the book and actually research. It could be helpful again. Some brains are different. And again, my client today was a doctor. So it would be helpful for people in that field. And I even told her it would be cool to get you on podcast and cover it from your perspective because you know that area. You can talk about physiology and even connect more points to us.
Right. Yeah.
And it, like, again, and people are listening, they could be from different fields of what they do, and they can even connect most of that week from our experience. Again, you were a coach, you were a teacher, you that, but you weren't like IT person, you weren't like a swimmer, like that.
All the metaphors for whatever it is people do in their life, like it's amazing.
It just creates bigger picture for everybody. Again, it resonates from us because we understand those fields, but as long as you could think of examples for yourself, that just creates bigger pictures, and all of a sudden you feel yourself whole.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even about aligned living system, right? Just like in general, it gives you that feeling like, oh, I'm complete. Like
we feel like we're in the right place at the right time with the right person, ourselves, and whoever else we're around. It's I know I always get so excited when people jump into the adventure because it's people always say there's their experience of life before aligned living and after. It's an instant shift, and it just makes us more us. And that's what's so fun about it. And so thanks so much for listening. And there is some great science out there. Obviously, my book, I did a bunch of research and included it all in it. But Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi was actually a place I got a lot of information. He has a book called, I think it's called Flow. A little bit more technical reading, but if you're into that, fascinating. There's HeartMath Institute has some great books. I think they have some free downloads on their site for some of the books, which are a compilation of experiments. I read a lot of Greg Braden, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and so there's tons of stuff out there. And you know, you can go down that rabbit hole and go, my gosh, you know, like mainstream science just you know, it's slowly starting to catch up with what we've all known for, you know, thousands of years. But it's so cool that there's enough flexibility now that's actually being documented, because it used to just get shut down. And now there's actually universities that are studying all this stuff, obviously from some of those examples, but it's amazing what's happening. I love that science is playing such a big role. So thanks so much for listening. And
Yep. And yeah, thank you, and go have impact on the material world now.
yeah, that's what we're doing, right? Awesome.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast. And if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.